Hello viewers and welcome to another edition of our program Straight Talk. Today the topic is on Meghalaya Budget 2022. Well, the Chief Minister of the state just 2 days back has presented the budget, and we will be getting some reactions from our panelists today in this program. Well, to discuss the budget, I have to my left Dr. Benjamin Lingdo, who is the Assistant Professor, Department of Tourism, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. We are also being joined by Dr. Darishisha War Thankyo. She is the Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. And we also have with us Shri Harsh Junjunwala, who is an editor and an entrepreneur. Well, I'm sure that each of our panelists have so much to speak on this budget. A very warm welcome to each one of you.
Thank you.
We will be talking about the budget, but viewers, we are just going in for a short video clip. Don't go anywhere. Come right back after watching this video.
The Meghalaya Budget 2022-2023 had been presented on the floor of the Meghalaya Assembly by the Chief Minister of Meghalaya. The budget for matters of convenience had been neatly classified and stratified into various categories like sources of funds and its utilization, state's own resources, revenue versus capital receipts, revenue versus capital expenditures, salary versus non-salary, etc., to name a few. Interestingly, this year, the government had in its budget session made new announcements on each of the categories which reflect the broad objectives, plans and policies of the government of Meghalaya for the well-being of its citizens. The broad spectrum covered new roads and connectivity, water supply scheme, etc. This year, the government have come out with the idea to ease congestion in the city with plans to introduce pooled school buses and electric buses. Today's Straight Talk is aimed at focusing on the financial plan of the government for the citizen of the state of Meghalaya to enlighten the public, to drive them into the inside of the budget and to understand in which way and how it will be beneficial for the citizens at large.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and now that you have watched the very short clip, so we will be discussing extensively on the Meghalaya Budget 2022-23. Well, let me begin once again by welcoming each one of you to this program. Thank you very much for giving us your time. I would start with you, Dr. Benjamin. What is your take of the budget that has just been presented?
Budget is basically a financial tool which are used by various organizations, in this case for the purpose of our discussion, the government,
Right.
for the purpose of planning growth and development, in this case of the entire state. And if we look into this particular budget that we have in front of us right now, it is a pretty interesting budget, and there are many good things about this budget. Of course, there are certain issues which we would be discussing
Absolutely,
later,
yeah.
but there are a number of good things. One good thing which I would like to highlight in this particular budget is the creation of a linkage between the financial allocation with sustainable development goals. Now, I find that to be very, very interesting. I was trying to seek out and search as to, is there any other state government in our country or any other government around the world which is actually doing this? But to my knowledge, I was not able to come across any government of the day which is doing what our state government has done. And this focus on youth and gender equality and women empowerment, this is something which is very, very good. So the government, through this particular budget, according to me, they have laid a roadmap, they have a certain plan, and to me it looks like they have a certain understanding of what actually they want to do and the strategies which they have in place.
Okay.
But certain other issues are there, like a pretty high fiscal deficit of 4.5% coming to around 1,850 crores rupees, which is of a great concern for a small state like ours, where revenue generation is pretty low.
Right.
But of course, yes, overall, I think the government has done a pretty good job.
Okay. Thank you so much for your opening comments. Let me go to Dr. Thankyo. How do you read the budget? Because, he has just said, Dr. Benjamin said that, he gives it a thumbs up. And, it is a visionary, budget that has been presented perhaps because, the Chief Minister has been stressing that he wants to see the state in the top 10 list of the country in the next 10 years, 10 into 10, right? You agree?
Actually, I see this budget, actually the thrust of this budget is on the development of infrastructure.
Right, yes.
That is a very good thing because as we know, we lack so much in terms of infrastructure in our state. And there is also a good thing that the government is really committed on spending on capital expenditure. It's almost 13% of the total budget, so that's very good. And for the state, the economy of the state. And then I have also seen that the government is also focusing, giving priority to the health sector. The allotment to the health sector is quite high.
Right, right.
Because if you look at the trend of the health expenditure, the allocation from the government, you can see that it's almost 2 to 3% of the GSDP. This time it has increased to 4%, so it's a good sign that it is committed to make those long-term changes or to bring about the long-term changes that we really need in the state.
Right. I think this is a lesson that we have learned since the COVID times. I think the thrust has really been given on the health sector also, the priority has been given. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, you are an entrepreneur yourself, a businessman. Happy with the budget? It has enough for the business sector also?
We'll come to this budget. I must congratulate the Conrad Sangma government for this budget. This budget is, I feel, is primarily a rural budget, where they have focused on the rural sector very much. If you take our state as a skeleton, as a human being, the skeleton needs to be strong, and the infrastructure, as Dr. Benjamin has said, they have really focused on the infrastructure. 26 major roads and 2 kilometers of roadways every day is not a joke for a small state like us.
Like this, yes.
From this budget, two things I would like to say is, one is on the impetus on the turmeric production that the Sangma government has brought with spices and everything. And this is our USP, what we have, nobody else has in this world. Right. So this can be looked upon, and the production he has focused on bringing many production facilities also. But how to enrich the value at a greater pace, that is required. As Dr. Thankyu has said rightly, the health workers of our state ought to be stood up and congratulated. They fought with something which we have never heard about. And the UHCs, CHCs and PHCs needed urgent attention, which they have rightly done.
Okay, so now since I've got all your, what I can understand is that after listening to your opening comments, all three of you are relatively happy with the budget. Yet, but then when we when we take the total budget, Mr. Benjamin, Dr. Benjamin, what is your biggest take from this budget? Like which sectors you feel has stood out? Of course, you said roads, you said infrastructure. But then what, according to you, really stands out in this budget?
See, a budget is, like I said earlier, is a tool of financial planning. And governments always use budgets keeping in mind the growth and development of their particular state or their country. Now, what I really like about this budget and what stands out in this particular budget is the huge allocation for the education sector. That is something which is very, very good, because see, we talk about human resource development all the time. Now, human resource development can happen only if you focus on two things. One is education, and the other, like what the others have said just now, and the other factor is health. if you really want your state to, you're talking about, being amongst the top 10 states in 10 years.
This is what the
right?
Chief Minister himself said.
Of course.
That's his vision.
It's okay. We can always have visions. It's fine. But if you really want to achieve that, then human resource development is very, very important.
Right.
And for that to happen, for the next 10 years, this government or any government of the day will have to focus on education and health. Because there's no point for a person to be well educated if he or she is not healthy. And at the same time, there's no point for a person to be healthy if he or she is not educated.
Okay, so you've linked the two.
No, it's always like that. The theory is like that. It's always like that. And that is how we have human resource development. Now, I'm very, very happy that in this particular budget, I saw a huge allocation for the education department. It's around, I think, 2,800 crores of rupees. That's a huge amount. Then there's a lot of allocation for the health sector. Of course, and there's a lot of allocation for the finance department also.
Right.
But that is fine. And then the other good point about this particular budget is, like I said, this focus on youth and gender and sustainable development goals. Now this is a new aspect altogether, which this government has focused upon. Now we can always argue that since we're going to have elections very soon, and any government of the day will always do this. They will present a budget which is populist, which is for the people, because this is basically the last budget we're going to have from the state government before the elections.
Right.
So we can also look at all of these good things that we have in front of us, keeping in mind the elections we're going to have in early 2023.
Right.
But nonetheless, these are some of the good things which I find in this particular budget. Of course, there are certain major issues which I would highlight later on, but in terms of, you're asking me the good things, the things which stand out: education, health, human resource development, youth, gender, gender equality, women empowerment, and this sustainable development goals linkage with the budget. This is something which is really good.
Yeah, in fact, the Chief Minister said that this is a gender budget. Right, he calls it a gender budget, with sustainable development goals and with a vision for the state. Dr. Thankyo, I come back to you again. I mean, you're an educationist. You know what Dr. Benjamin said, that the thrust is so much on education. I think it should be, because for the last over 2.5 years, the kind of education, the way the education, the entire setup suffered. We went to the online mode, and the difficulties that the children, the students suffered is huge. I mean, you being an educationist, you will understand that better, I suppose. But then, when education got so much of thrust, I think we now have understood that education has to be on the blended mode. Right? Online, offline, both mode. But then, when we are talking about blended mode, do you think it has got enough of developing the internet? Because without that also the online education system is not working. Maybe in the city it did, but do you think that thrust was there in the budget for that?
We see that the government is making certain allocation to the power sector. Of course, we as members of the society, as the living in Shillong, we know that we experience these frequent power cuts.
Right.
So it's so difficult to take online classes and to expect students to do their assignments on time.
Right.
It's really difficult.
Because this will become a norm, I think Dr. Benjamin will agree to that, isn't it?
Of course. See, this new normal that we're talking about, actually now it's not a new normal only. It's not a new normal anymore. Actually, it's the real normal that we have to live with.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not, teaching and learning from now on will always be on the blended mode.
Right.
I've come across many teacher friends who tell, and when we discuss, who tell me something like this, right from school level. This is not just at the higher educational level. Right from school level, they say now teaching will be a blended mode. Some classes will be taken, some topics in fact will be teaching in the classroom,
Right.
which actually require classroom teaching,
right.
that physical interaction. By the way, there's nothing like offline class. It's either online class or that physical interaction, conventional classroom.
In the
There's no
classroom.
such thing as offline. I don't know why we call offline.
We have just conveniently changed it from online to
Actually, there's no such thing as offline.
Right.
So teachers say that there are certain topics which we will teach, in this conventional physical interaction classroom that we have. Topics which require that interaction in the classroom. And there are certain topics, we all know, teachers here, which can be handled through this online
Oh
mode.
yeah, the
So
chalk,
we will, yeah,
chalk and the blackboard.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we will handle certain topics using the online mode. So it's a blended mode, and this is here to stay. COVID-19 has been a disaster for everyone, but COVID-19 has also taught us many things.
Yeah, a learning experience.
It
too.
is a learning experience, and we have to take the good things and we have to move on with that. We have learned a lot, not only in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social capacity and social, cohesiveness, the cooperation that we have in our societies. We have learned a lot. Let's take the good things and move on. Blended mode teaching learning is one of that.
Okay. Let me come back to you, Mr. Junjunwala. Were you expecting a little bit more when it comes to, businesses getting more, a little bit more extra something because they just came out of the COVID situation?
Yes, before answering to that question, I'd like to add something regarding this budget. The takeaway from this budget is not prepared just for keeping 1 year in mind.
Right.
They have 10 years, they have prepared for next 10 years. When you ask that internet question, they are trying to get a high connectivity line from Bangladesh.
Okay.
What happens when we get that? Then the rural connectivity,
Yes.
the digital problem that we can have that, that will really help.
And that
the
is so
rural
important, the
the
rural
rural
connectivity.
education.
Yeah, yeah.
So this budget is focusing on the rural areas. Now when you ask about the business community, I'll tell you, look, the rural population, business farmers, everybody, they are really happy, I feel. But the people in the urban area, urban, the SMEs, small and micro industries, they are facing a pinch. After COVID, we had the first the CA, then there was the COVID, and now there's this price rise like anything due to the war between Russia and Ukraine. It's affecting the rates in almost every industry.
Okay.
It's affecting the rates in almost every industry. So the state could have made a slab. Say people having turnover less than 5 crores.
Okay.
Their SGST would have been returned.
Okay.
That would have increased the compliance because we need to increase our tax revenues. That would have given a breather to so many small businessmen. You see, let's take for an example. One shop employs 10 people. So he's taking care of 10 households. Estimate 5 people in each household. That's 50 people. In urban area, how many establishments we have? 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 5,000? You do the match. So something like that would have really helped the urban SMEs. I seriously feel.
Okay. All right. Let's come back.
And just to close on
add,
that, whatever Madam, thank you, and Mr. Junjunwala said just now. You see, if you want to achieve the 10th position in 10 years, and because that is what we are looking at, it's okay to have that as a vision. If you want to achieve 10th position in 10 years, then scaling up of the rural areas is a must. You will never achieve 10th position in 10 years if you don't scale our villages, our rural areas. So that is why this entire talk of connectivity and infrastructure and education and health, right? The real focus has to be in our villages and in the rural areas across all the socio-economic indicators. Then only we can achieve the 10th position amongst the Indian states after 10 years. Otherwise, it will just be a distant dream.
Yeah, because there's so much, everything is so Shillong centric, right? Everything is Shillong centric. You talk of any organization, be it school, be it anything, everybody wants to set up their shop and their wares right in the middle. Students are leaving their homes in the rural areas because they don't have, enough there, and they're looking for jobs here. So I think that rural development is a must, if, as you said, that, we need to be the 10th state at least.
Exactly. It is a must because see, Shillong is getting crowded now.
Yeah, extremely.
Right?
Yeah,
extremely crowded, right? I mean, not only in terms of vehicles, also in terms of
houses.
People.
Yeah, people and houses too.
This is putting a lot of pressure on the entire infrastructure. Waste management is just one big example that we have right in front of our faces every day. And traffic problem is there. And then we have these sewage management problems in our localities. It's very sad to say that, in some of the localities of Shillong, when you get up in the morning, you have the stench of sewage. Now, that is nothing but, the pressure that we have in our cities and in our towns. Now, why is this happening? Why is no one moving out? Why is everyone coming to our cities and towns? Because they have little or no opportunities in our villages and in the rural areas. That is why I was talking about scaling of the rural areas. Because unless if you do that, everyone will turn up here, and then this will be, Shillong will turn into another slum. I mean,
It already is a concrete slum.
okay,
Yeah.
you can see not only concrete, also in terms of people. You know, we talk about Dharavi in Mumbai, and we say, look at that slum. You know, when we pass through Dharavi, and look, that is a slum. But sometimes I feel that, you know, Shillong may turn something like that. You know, in terms of the number of people that we have in this particular city, it's so crowded. Now, all of this is happening is because we are not having opportunities in our rural areas. So that is why you have to scale up the rural areas, invest in the rural areas, invest in the people of the rural areas, so that they will find employment there itself. They will find pride in the jobs that they do over there, right? And that is how we can really progress as a state. So that we're talking about education and health, fine. But in terms of jobs, you have to invest in agriculture, a lot in agriculture. Other sectors are also important, manufacturing, industry, the other service sector, tourism, etc., etc. But agriculture is main, because still we have a majority of the people who are dependent on agriculture for livelihood.
Absolutely.
Around 66 to
Do agree,
67%,
yeah.
right? So if you don't invest on agriculture, then we will be nowhere. And you know, this is where, like, I have some issues with this particular budget. The allocation for agriculture this time is only around 900 crores.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just around, I think it's around 950 crores or something like that.
Yeah, but then he
Now-
was also talking about, you know, agricultural household, you know, some benefits, cash benefit programs for 5,000.
No, how does that
being-
matter? No,
Yeah.
actually, no, how
Yeah.
does that matter?
It
How does
doesn't
that
really
matter?
help, yeah.
It doesn't help.
In the
You-
long
you're-
run, and
you're-
for a short term,
see,
yeah, maybe.
Madam, see,
Yeah.
you have to teach people how to fish.
Exactly.
You don't just give them
And
fish. This is a
True.
Chinese proverb, which is very true. If you want a person to grow, to progress, to develop, don't give him fish. Teach a person how to fish. Now you're giving these amounts you're talking about, you're just giving them fish. It's okay. I have no issues with that. It's okay. For them, it's a lot of money. It helps, right? No issues with that at all. But I'm actually not looking at a government which gives fish. I want a government which teaches its people how to fish, right? And this investment in agriculture that we find in this particular budget, to me, is actually very less. And it will not do justice to the potential, you know, the potential that we have in terms of agriculture in our villages. You know, we look at agriculture only in terms of, you know, you produce, you and then you harvest and then you sell. Actually, that is not agriculture, right? We have to benefit from the entire value chain. What about food processing units? What about that?
Cold chains also, right?
Exactly.
Cold storage is also, no?
What about all of these things? These things will lead to, you know, the scaling of agriculture. But somehow, I'm not saying the government is not doing. They are doing. Things are happening in our villages. But actually, I think we really have to expedite this entire process so that we can see better and faster returns.
Right, right. Let's. I'll be coming to the tourism sector in a little while, because that is a big area that he has, you know. But then I want to come to women empowerment, you know, because he said that, you know, the government is taking initiatives, you know, in the expansion of self-help groups, you know, programs that will cover 3 lakh households, and he said that, you know, it will become the top 3 states in terms, you know, in terms of immunization of women, of children also. So when we are talking about women and children, this is an arena, especially he spoke about self-help groups. How do you look into this?
The self-help groups in our state they're doing quite well. As you can see, the numbers have been growing, and they have reported that they have benefited from the group, being in a group, and we have also seen that through these self-help groups, they learn to sustain themselves. That is one important thing that from these self-help groups, and they learn to save and invest. It helps them in carrying out their businesses, in their farming. So I think this we need to encourage more and more of these self-help
But then
groups.
coming back to the problem of you know, jobs again, because you know, every year we find graduates coming out, there's no jobs, you know. It's difficult for private sectors also to come because of certain situations, and there are, you know, problems there too. So where will our youth go? I mean, the youth are getting frustrated, you know, unless and until we channelize their education, their energy that we have in the right, they will be, you know, they will obviously go into other inappropriate direction. I should use a, you know, a very mild word to that, yeah? How do you look into this thing that, you know, does this budget have anything for jobs for the youth, especially, you know, creating jobs, giving them employment. I think the youth definitely, you know, Mr. Jhunjhunwala, your take on this, because you know, did the budget have enough really? I mean, it is talking about youth, it is talking about sports also, of of sporting activities. But then when it comes to jobs, employment problem, unemployment problem, has it taken care of it enough?
See, they have come up with a lot of avenues. In fact, sports infrastructure that they are creating is something we can really praise. It's increasing like very good. We have so many grass turfs being placed. Film industry, if you think about jobs, they are giving incentives, and they are going to work on that in a good way. And one film is employing so many people. You'll be cinematographer, director, artist. So many people have been get employment.
Okay.
Then they have just come up with this IT.
IT park.
IT park.
Yeah.
They have already got 1500. I think the space allotment has been already done. There are people who are taking. They don't have any more space, and they're going to update it for another 4,500 jobs very soon.
Right.
And they are about to come up. They are going to give homestays to many of the. I think around 1,000 households. So that is also going to create job opportunities.
Yeah.
So they are working on it bit by bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope our youth will have the patience to really wait that bit by bit
Actually,
part,
the problem with I like to add this. We are reliant on the government for jobs. That has to change.
Yes.
India is a country of entrepreneurs. We
Yeah,
create
but,
things.
but then let me again,
Our
the CM, the Chief Minister, is really giving a lot of thrust on entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So he
40%
has a
of our
prime hub also, which more such hubs will be set
Yeah.
up. He said,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
prime and focus.
Focus,
Yeah.
yes, even focus.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll just continue from what Madam Thanki and Mr. Jhunjhunwala said. We're talking about a focus on cinema, right? The cinema sector. It's growing. It's going to be a huge sector. We have many talented people who can come into cinema.
And they really don't have to go much outside,
Exactly.
because
And-
the locations
and
are
this
just
is the
right
point.
here. Yeah.
I don't know how many people do this. Normally, what do we do when a movie ends? Whenever a movie ends, we just switch channels, right? But actually, we should do one thing. After the movie ends, we should leave that particular channel for some time and just look at the number of people who are involved in the making of that movie.
Absolutely.
Especially if you watch, Marvel Avenger movies,
Big budget films,
the
right?
big budget movies, right? Just look at the number of people who are involved in the making of that movies, and you'll find many Indians also. Don't just switch a channel. Let the screen roll. Look at the names who are involved over there. People who are involved in visual arts and in graphics and all types of programming and all. It's a huge sector,
Huge.
right? And so this is one aspect which has to be focused upon even better, and it's good that it has started. It must start in a small way. It's good that it has started. Now, just to make a small point regarding jobs, see, we need a government which creates a nurturing environment,
Right.
so that people who are enterprising can find jobs for themselves. They can become entrepreneurs. Like Mr. Jhunjhunwala said, India is a land of entrepreneurs. It's very true. But you will not be able to do entrepreneurship if you don't have a nurturing environment. The environment should be
just right.
investment friendly. It has to be investment friendly. Now, who will create that environment? Whether you like it or not, it is the job of the government.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I'm not blaming government, but actually this is the job of the government,
Right.
right? And so instead of just saying we are giving this much money for a prime hub, we are giving this much money for, skilling, they focus on skilling also.
Right.
Actually try to create a nurturing environment, an investment friendly
Friendly.
environment, so that people, the youth themselves, they will come and start something. Not everyone will be looking for a government job now. If the environment is good and friendly and nurturing, they themselves will come, right, and do a lot of things, and they will do a lot of things. It's just that the environment is not suitable for them to start something new. So that is actually the problem over here, right? And in the end, I'll just close with one small thing regarding jobs. See, in any budget, we have a revenue component and a capital component. Now, right, Madam Thamki, now whenever we talk about, creating jobs and investment and all, actually what is more important is the capital component. So the more the investment in capital, the more the allocation for capital investments, then the more jobs we're going to have, right? So the government can invest on infrastructure and other things, right? And then we can have more jobs that way. People who will be involved in some government projects or government offices, or people, because of the development of roads and infrastructure, they can come up and start some enterprise of their own in some villages, agricultural or other service sector. So the capital component is also very, very important when it comes to creation of jobs. But sadly, out of the total allocation of around 19,000 crores, the allocation for capital expenditure is like what ma'am said earlier, is only around 3,000 crores. Now, and the rest is for, you know, revenue expenditure, non-planned expenditure, which actually we don't see any infrastructure being created on the ground, right? So when you're investing only 3,000 crores per annum on capital, you know, investments, now this it is a concern. It is a huge problem actually, because then you'll not be able to develop many things, and if you don't develop infrastructure, when I say many things, I mean infrastructure. You don't develop infrastructure. If you don't have infrastructure, then people with potential will not find that space to do the things that they want to do. You will not be able to create some enterprise somewhere if you don't have proper roads or electricity or connectivity, right? So these are some of the issues actually.
And talking of roads, you know, we are so congested, right? I mean, there's no scope, it seems, at all within the city to widen it. I don't know, maybe if the government really tried hard, maybe it can also. Flyovers, I'm not sure. The way we are seeing our neighboring state, you know, building flyovers, I'm not sure that can be done here, really. But then we are bringing a lot of transport, it seems. You know, he's talking about electric buses, he's talking about mini buses, school buses, a fleet of school buses. I don't know where they will ply really. And then he's also talking about luxury vehicles for the tourists, right? Buggies also, yeah. So there's a ropeways also. I read somewhere there's a ropeway. There was a ropeway before also some plan. I don't know where it frizzled out, but then there's a talk again, right, to connect it. Let's talk about this. Since we are all sufferers of this, I start with you, Mr. Junjunwala. How do you look into this additional traffic, buses and minibuses that will be added in the roads, in the congested roads of Shillong?
Today's example. Starting from Kitting Road till your...
it took you how much?
1 hour 25 minutes.
Wow.
It shouldn't take that long.
No.
The problem, introducing electric buses, carpooling, that's a brilliant idea. It's an old saying, but it doesn't happen actually. What we really need is new roads.
Right.
I think after the British left, in Shillong city, how many new roads we have? Just 2 or 3 roads have been made. We don't have. And how many times, how many folds has our population increased? We just need to see that. So what we need to do is, if you need some road, you need to ask people to give the land. You rehabilitate them.
Yeah.
What they have, give them double. Give them space. But you need to come up with a solution. Otherwise, our city will go to a stand. We already go to standstill during puja,
Literally nowadays. I mean, just the other day, I think last week, the city actually had come to a standstill. You know, I personally was stuck in an area near MH for 3 hours. There was a festival happening, and you know, and this is what we have suffered. And added to that, you know, where will they ply? Tell me, Dr. Thankyu, where are these buses going to fit in the already? We have the red buses already.
We don't need more cars on the road.
No,
we don't need that. We need actually deroute. I mean, roads that should be, you know, outside Shillong. Say you can have. We already have this in plan, but I don't know why it's taking so long to materialize. We need bypass. Say for the road in going to Upper Shillong, that is the road serving the whole of West Khasi Hills.
right.
And the Sora area in East Khasi Hills,
That part of Khasi.
the whole of the, it depends. They depend on that road. And just imagine if we're stuck at one point, then the whole stretch will be full of cars.
Yeah.
So we need a bypass.
Yeah, and our schedules are just going topsy-turvy, right?
We don't need to come through the city every time. We need, say, we need to be to reach Umrah Airport from Upper Shillong.
Right.
Then we need a bypass. We don't need to travel to Shillong.
Yeah, through the Shillong city.
Through Shillong city.
Yeah. I'm sure you have a lot to say on this.
Yeah, actually, ma'am, one wonderful thing which our Chief Minister, Mr. Conrad Sangma, said during his speech was, he talked about, you know, and I put in quotes, pooled school buses.
Okay.
We talked about pooled school buses. I think that is a wonderful idea.
Okay.
That is a wonderful idea because this will go a long way in decongesting the traffic that we have in Shillong. But the only issue here is that it is very important for the people to work together. I mean, here in Shillong, mostly people are like, we always want to drop our children to school by our own small
One
vehicles.
vehicle, one child.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think it's time for everyone, all of us, including the viewers, everyone, that we should work together when it comes to this particular strategy, this particular issue. That if a particular school or a number of schools, they come together with a pooled school bus from certain location to the school, or a number of schools in a particular stretch, let's say Don Bosco stretch, I think we should cooperate now. The time has come that we should cooperate. Our children must be going to schools in school buses if they are provided by the school. I think because
this is what happens everywhere else.
No, in the
right?
past, in the past, there was this proposal of school buses for every school.
Right.
But in the end, it is the parents only who who rejected that particular plan, right? I think, but now I think enough is enough. We've had enough now. I think now is the time to change our thinking. If school buses are available for certain stretches, right, we should be using this particular service.
And the government must put pressure now to these big schools which are located right in the middle of the city, to impress upon the parents also to go for it. I mean,
actually, all schools.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, in the cities of India, my friends were telling me, one of the condition is that unless and until the school has a school bus, you will not be allowed to start a school.
Exactly.
Or a college,
This
right?
is what I'm saying.
I
So
think
there should be some
this is
pressure
the
from the
same
government.
thing. This is the same thing we should start doing over here.
Yeah.
And if the government needs to put its foot down, then you put your foot down.
Exactly.
And the people should cooperate, and we should work together in this particular issue.
And because they are taking so many children. Yeah, their attendance and everything is increasing. Their admission is increasing every year. But why is there no provision of parking inside the school campus? The entire public road is taken up by the school because their children, their parents are parking. This adds to the massive, traffic congestion, right? So this is another area which the government has to put its foot down. Of course, we are talking of so many buses and so many, additional traffic in the road. But unless, and Mr. Jhunjhunwala said, unless and until the roads are widened, any scope for the roads to get widened?
Absolutely not. You're talking about Shillong, right?
Yes,
Doctor, I totally disagree with you. There is. If you
no,
need
but Mr.
space,
Jhunjhunwala, who is going to give that space?
Suppose
Because
if the land costs 1 crore rupees, for example, give them 2 crore rupees and a house.
I wonder from where that money will come really.
No, actually,
we need to take loans. The government needs to take loans.
We are already a loan-strapped
we are
state.
overburdened.
It doesn't matter. If we have productive loans, see, Manipur's fiscal deficit is 9%, which is one of the highest. I am talking about percentage, right? Ours is 4.5, I think so.
4.5,
right?
Yeah.
Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu, theirs is 4%.
But
Lower
they
than
are
us.
very big states.
Exactly, that 4% will be so much amount. See, if we believe in the work that we are doing, right? If we believe in the work that we are doing, we shouldn't be scared of taking loans.
Okay.
It should be a productive loan. Because if we need to come in pace with the current economics of the other states. See,
but don't you think there is a problem here of urban development also? When buildings are being built, why the building doesn't have its own parking?
No, actually, see,
I'll just add.
sure.
See, there should be a rule. If you are opening a bank,
Yes.
you have to have a parking of
In the
20
building.
cars. If you do not have that parking, you cannot open a bank.
Exactly.
Something like that.
If you're talking about this Shillong that we know today, the chances of, although Mr. Jhunjhunwala has wonderful ideas and all that, but if you're really practical about that, and we look at the locality roads that we have in Shillong, we'll not only look at the bigger roads, but the
locality roads.
Not
locality
just the
roads.
main roads, but inside roads.
It is like, I can say, impossible to do anything right now.
yeah.
So as far as Shillong city is concerned, this Shillong that we know today, I think it has reached its saturation point.
Absolutely.
And there is very little scope to create parking lanes or offices with huge parking spots. Now very little scope. Now the only thing which can happen now is Shillong needs to spread out.
Right.
Yeah.
You spread out towards Maoyong, you spread towards Lajkot, you spread towards New Shillong, you spread out.
But
Right,
the
and
existing-
and when you spread out, then you make proper planning of the new urban
that
area,
is very important.
of the new urban area, so that the mistakes and the lessons that we have learned from this Shillong, which will be old Shillong very soon,
Right.
right? The mistakes that we have learned from here will not be repeated in the other areas.
Right.
I think, Mr. Junjunwala, that will be more
That will help
of a
to some
feasible.
extent.
Yeah, that is a feasible. That is
yeah.
also feasible,
Yeah.
and we have the smart city project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is also going to add funds to us. We need to decongest definitely. We need to decongest definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
But we need
Because a lot of beautification happened just before our 50th year celebration, you know, every locality were given funds in fact to beautify, to paint, to etc. But that is not enough. That will not solve.
one thing,
you
our
know, help.
localities are
Yeah.
very good,
Yeah.
Mashvi. If you see the traffic discipline inside the localities, we have such narrow lanes, but 2 cars also pass because that understanding among the people is there.
Yeah, yeah.
But as the
We are
cars
trying
are
to
increasing,
exist.
because
Yeah.
if you see people friends who come from outside, they say, "How you drive? We cannot drive."
Let's come to the tourism sector. Let us come to the tourism sector. You think there was enough, you know, the tourism sector was hit very hard during the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, I have known friends, I have known people who had started new ventures, you know, all these so many guest houses and stays,
Services and all,
etc.
yeah.
Right, and they all had to actually shut shop.
Mhm.
We had enough for the tourism sector to grow, to
The
thrive. to
the
develop.
allocation for tourism sector is 173 crores.
Yeah.
173 crores. Now, if you look at this particular amount, it's very small for a
Okay.
sector which has got such scope and potential like the tourism
Absolutely, and
sector.
that is our main, you know, economic arena
But
also.
it's a
in the state.
catch-22 situation.
Yeah,
It has got a good and bad.
Okay.
The bad is that is not enough money in terms of infrastructure development and in terms of, you know, giving some relief to the people who have suffered because of the
Losses,
COVID-19
yes.
pandemic.
Right,
You know, even
right.
today, I have friends in the sector who tell me even today that we are still struggling.
Absolutely.
Most of the
yes.
enterprises, because most of them are small enterprises,
Yes.
Right,
most
right.
of the enterprises have closed down
Right.
because of the pandemic, and many, not most, many have not been able to reopen even after tourism has started again in our state, right? So that's the bad part, and for that particular situation, there is no allocation in this budget. That is sad. You know, for that situation, there's no allocation in this budget. But then we can always argue and say something like this. Many people involved in industry, manufacturing, agriculture were also hit. Even for them, there's no allocation. So I think that is something which has to do with the cash crunch of the government, and you know, the government is trying to work its way out, but there's no help for them. The other good side is that you know, this present government, at least in this particular budget, I have never seen such focus being given on tourism in the other budgets as it is the case in this particular budget, right? And so money allocation is there, and you know, tourism sector is mainly driven by people, the private sector, right? So you have some money for infrastructure development, and the private parties will come in and they will do their own part, the communities will do their own part, and tourism will continue to grow. And the wonderful thing is that 200 luxury vehicles, ma'am, you said that this will add to traffic congestion, but
But
the
it will
story,
also create, yes,
but the
jobs.
story here is not actually about that, because these luxury vehicles that we are talking about for the tourism sector,
I understand
it's
what you're
not,
trying to say.
it's not exactly about, you know, creating
no,
a problem
not really
of
for
traffic, but
traffic,
it's
but
about
more to, yes.
entrepreneurship, creating more entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
job opportunities
Yeah.
for people, and
And the
I should-
high-end tourists to come actually,
Exactly.
not the,
They
you
give
know,
And see,
50%
ma'am,
subsidy also.
the
to
thing is
Yes,
this about
yes.
tourism. We always talk about food, accommodation, and other recreation, leisure, and other services in tourism. But you know what is most important in tourism? It is transportation, because transportation, the driver is the first, you know, the first contact with the tourist. It is not the homestay. It is not the restaurant. It is not the hotel.
Right.
It is the driver. It is the transportation.
Okay.
So how he greets, how he welcomes, and you know, sometimes when we enter into our vehicles to go around, I mean, they are not proper, right? But when we have these wonderful vehicles, you know, it will add to the tourism image of our state. So it's a different story here, right? It's not too much about traffic congestion. It's about rebuilding and reshaping the model of tourism that we are doing right now.
Okay.
Okay, it's actually more about that and less about, you know, the traffic congestion out of these vehicles.
Right.
And
Okay.
most of these vehicles will be out of Shillong only. They will not be here.
Okay, I take your point. I take your point. But then let me come to Dr. Thankyu. You know, do you think the problems that the economy of Meghalaya has, you know, the problems that has been addressed with this budget, or that will be addressed with this budget?
I see that the budget has covered, I mean, most of the important sectors, but I'm really disappointed with the how things are moving in agricultural sector. We have so many missions and programs. Of course, they intended to bring returns for the farmers, the people in the rural areas, but actually, you know, these piecemeal measures will not help.
Okay.
It's just so you know, you can put the money in some other useful alternative use. Actually, what we need in agricultural sector is the agriculture policy for the state. We have been, I mean, I've seen this in newspaper. It came up 2-3 years back that the state need agricultural policy, its own agricultural policy.
Exactly.
See, when we have agricultural policy, everything is in place. What crop to cultivate, the R&D behind it, and the marketing, processing, and all those things will be covered. Now it's just you come up with so many missions and programs, and it's just giving 10 crores here, 10 crores there. It will not see the full potential of the agricultural sector.
Right. Yeah, very, very, very important and valid point, I think. Let us quickly come, because this is a problem that we are seeing piling up, and we just made a mention of it, waste management. I think this is growing day by day. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, can we talk about this really? Because, you know, even yesterday while I was driving back from Guwahati to Shillong, you know, I was covered with that smog, that smoke, that smell. You know, this is how we are welcoming our tourists actually, and it is right there when the tourists are thing. Have we talked about this? Is the budget has enough for waste management, which is so crucial? We have seen in our adjacent district, that is in Joy also, the condition, right?
Yeah. Right in the marketplace.
Yeah, right in the marketplace, and it's been terrible. Yeah.
This is, see, the budget cannot fix everything in a
No,
single
but
year.
it should have, you know, a sufficient scope,
I
right?
think in the budget, if I read it clearly, they have talked about a new landfill area also,
Yes,
Yeah.
right?
yes, yes.
So they are working on it, but this, see, we must understand, this is not a problem of just Shillong. To go to Guwahati, go to any city in India.
But there should
This
be
is
more
the-
scientific way of managing the waste, isn't it? Collection is fine. I think collection is being done methodologically.
In
Yeah.
Tura, they are, I think it's a Japanese or a Korean company which is working with plastics to make some roads, yeah, and they are working on it. If that is successful, then it will really help us.
Here also, for a very small stretch, it was an experiment.
It
that
was an
had taken
experiment,
place,
but
yeah.
they are working something.
Yeah.
So this is a problem which we cannot put the responsibility totally on the government. It's a collective responsibility.
Okay.
We as residents, we have to love our state. We cannot throw, we cannot dirty our state. And we had this Swachh Bharat mission. So there are apparently houses which do not have waste management. So if they do not have the finance, they should approach, or the government should come up with something so they get the finances to make things right.
You know, outside there are a lot of people actually making money from waste, right? They are collecting from the home, and they are making beautiful things out of it, you know, which is helping them generate income for themselves. Any such, you know, things should have been, you know, can be implemented
No,
here
it's
too?
happening here also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's happening here also,
Okay.
but the scale is so small that
Okay.
you know the waste, we see more of the waste than the innovation which is happening out of the waste.
Right.
It's happening here also. I think there's a solution to the waste crisis that we find in our cities and our towns. When I was a small kid, you know, in our home we used to have this compost pit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I think we are all
But
used
you
to
should
that.
have a home, right? I mean, we are having buildings now and apartments
problem,
and flats.
no problem.
Right.
You can make a compost pit out of a wooden crate also.
Okay.
It's okay, no problem. Now what happens is that all the organic waste,
Segregation
except
of
for meat items, of course, all the organic waste, you don't have to give to Muda actually. You don't have to give to them. You don't have to send to Martin. You put it in your compost pit. If you are having a big building, no problem. You make it with a wooden crate. You put it in your wooden crate. You make a compost pit. That is wonderful manure for, you know,
Yeah.
for your flowers and for some
Absolutely,
crops that you grow in your
vegetables too. Yeah,
garden.
yeah.
So what will go to Martin? Only the inorganic waste.
Right.
It becomes easier to manage. The stench which actually comes from Martin is more of the organic waste than the inorganic waste, right? So this is the first thing which the government should do, which means we the people, like
also
what
have a clear role.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala said, we have to cooperate and we have to go back, right, to our traditional practices of having a compost pit and doing our part, so that the waste which goes to the landfill, right, will be very, very less, and something we can make something out of that, right? Like you say, you know, we manage our waste so that we can make something beautiful. We make roads out of that, plastics and all. So I think that is one way out, because talking about getting a landfill now, even the ones which we are
Yes.
looking at in Ribhoi district,
Right.
the village and the communities around the village, they are all protesting now.
Ah, yes, of
They
course.
said we are not
Yeah.
going to give,
Right.
right? So it's not so easy actually to
right.
find a landfill. It's not so easy. So that way, we the people, for what we can do, we must do.
Yeah, we must do, and we should also give our land if the need comes, because eventually it is for our own benefit only. If roads has to be expanded, the people have to give land, right? I mean, if you expect the government to come halfway, we also should meet at some point.
We can follow the Alappuzha model which we have in Kerala, right? Whereby waste is managed by the community.
Right.
Like for example, Limekra, you manage your own waste. Mola, you manage your own waste. Right, Laban, you
That
manage
is
your
more
own
practical,
waste.
Yeah,
I think.
more
It's
practical.
easier also,
Yeah,
right?
and I think in that way you're creating some jobs also.
Exactly, but
right?
There is some
here,
responsibility.
Yeah.
but here we have everything which is jumbled up and in such a mess that I don't know what is the way out really. Because
no.
even in Reboy, that landfill which we are talking about, everyone is protesting now.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a huge problem that needs to be taken care of. Really,
This can be an
because-
opportunity also. If you see in Brazil, Sao Paulo, I think they have the biggest landfill areas. What has happened now? They have started making tin sheds.
Okay.
Right, social welfare, disaster management. They procure so much. Why not have some entrepreneurs start making
Yeah.
that and use that?
Alright. So I'm sure plenty of new ideas, has come from the three of you. We have given enough, fodder for thought for the viewers who are watching this program. I'm running out of time. Quickly, 20 seconds each. Concluding comments. When we think that there's a way out after all that we have seen. We have discussed it threadbare, I think, today. So there's still hope at the end of the day.
Yes, this is a budget for not just for 1 year, for 10 years. And we need to give the government some time. I'm sure they will come good with the digital implementation that they are thinking. Things will happen, I'm sure.
Okay. Quickly, Dr. Thank you.
I'm also thinking that we need some more time to see what come out of this budget. We will need some time, but we are hopeful that.
Yeah.
The government is borrowing too much actually.
This is-
In
this
this
been a
budget,
criticism,
in this budget, the government is going to borrow another 2,600 crores, which means that we are going more and more into
Into
debt.
debt,
Fiscal
yeah.
deficit 4.5%.
Yeah.
I mean that's a lot of money that we are borrowing for a small state like us, where we generate our own resources of only 3,000 crores per annum. This is just too much actually. I don't know from where we're going to manage money in future to repay all of these loans that we have taken. Meghalaya is falling into a debt trap. You're going to take another loan to pay the earlier loan.
Yeah, this is a criticism that has come from several arenas too. Let's hope. Let's look ahead, because as the Chief Minister said, this is for the next 10 years. He's not looking at it immediately, but in the long run. Hope that all the dreams that has been enshrined in this budget will come true for each one of us, and for that I think every individual along with the government has to play a role.
Exactly.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Dr.
ma'am. Thank you
Benjamin,
to you also.
Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Mr. Jhunjhunwala for coming to the studio and having such a wonderful discussion today on budget reactions. Well then, viewers, I'm sure you have enjoyed watching this Straight Talk today. Well, do join us next time again, and from all of us here, it's goodbye.